Hello, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to July's Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm your host, Pratik Patel, and I'm a technology consultant with Ingram Micro. As I've said many times before, I love using this forum to showcase the latest innovations with a panel of experts to help uncover new opportunities, new technologies, new ideas for my partners and resellers. For this month and the remainder of Q3, we'll be focusing on hybrid cloud. Now, I know you're probably thinking, yeah, you've already heard everything there is to know about hybrid cloud, but today we'll be discussing the next evolution in this technology. Think of it as Cloud 2.0. For that reason, I have my experts from Lenovo to help us out to not only understand the what, but the why behind this evolution. So to help make sense of it all, joining me today are John Encizo, Field CTO with Lenovo, and Kenny James, Channel Technical Sales Director with Lenovo. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to stop sharing my front screen and then. Okay, we're all good here. Yeah, so to start out, let's start with getting to know them a little better. Hi, John. I'm really thrilled that you're able to join our Tech Talk today. Could you tell us about your role as CTO and also give us an insight into some of the initiatives that you're working on?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Pratik. I really appreciate it. Love working with a great partner like Ingram. So my role in Lenovo is a bit of a catch-all. So I'm a technologist, strategist, architect. So I report directly into the VP of North America for Lenovo, Sergio Severo. And in that role, what I'm basically doing is trying to look at technology trends that are coming down the pipe that are going to be impacting our customers, understanding how to work to take some of that technology and productize it into a solution that we can all sell, and then working directly with partners and with customers to identify outcomes, identify strategies, and then apply technology from Lenovo and our partners, our ISV partners, and bringing folks like Ingram to the table to help deliver solutions that are going to solve business problems with technology.
Great. Thank you, John. Welcome, Kenny. I really appreciate you joining us today. Could you please tell us about your role at Lenovo and the types of activities you're involved with?
Sure. Thank you for having me. I am Kenny James. I am the Director of Technical Sales, and much like John, it's a catch-all as well. It is a role that has kind of evolved over time, but it's really to sharpen the knife, right? It's to sharpen the partners, help sharpen the partners in a methodology to kind of promote the services and products that we have to offer, and to match it from a strategy perspective of what the partners do well, and to make that match to the customer to create those business outcomes that John talked about a little bit. And it's been that way. John being part of the office of the CTO, I worked for the solutions director for North America, and in that particular group, we have all of the tech sellers within Lenovo that augment either directly with the customers or with the channel, and I'm quite proud to have been part of the channel since 2011, even before we came over to Lenovo. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been a great ride.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, Kenny. I love that channel first messaging you just had there. So that's excellent. But never expect anything less from Lenovo at this point. So everyone in the audience, your job today is to really simply just listen, learn, and identify situations where this conversation we'll be having today could be leveraged with your customers. But before we begin, let's get some mechanics out of the way first. We'll share the recording after the event today, but just to let you know, you can always find our previous recordings on YouTube. Next, my solution sales executive, Jamie Tarkowski, will reach out afterwards to really do a follow-up, any kind of activities or any kind of questions you might have. And finally, don't be shy, because today's event is for you. So please fire off your questions into the chat. I think that's it. Let's get started. John, let me begin with you. Many customers are looking to the cloud as the solution to their technical debt. What are your thoughts on this?
So Pratik, that's a great question. First, let me define technical debt for the audience. So technical debt, just like financial debt, it means you basically have, in this scenario, from a technology perspective, it has more work than you have time and people to deliver. And 100% agree. A lot of customers, they're moving to the cloud with the expectation of, when I move to the cloud, as if it is a magical location. So when I get there, all of a sudden, things are going to get better. I'm not going to have to update servers anymore. I'm not going to have to manage infrastructure in a data center anymore, and therefore my technical debt should go down. The reality, what we're seeing is that because of the diversity of cloud and the complexity inherent in cloud, when customers actually move to the cloud without a thought out process, strategy, and what the outcomes they want to deliver, it actually, not only does it not decrease technical debt, it increases technical debt. Because now, imagine, in the past, your data center was your fortress. You could keep all of your data secure, and you may have a firewall that was controlled by a firewall team, and your data wasn't easy to be exfiltrated. We turn around and we move it to the public cloud, and now all of a sudden, you're in the public cloud, right? So think about it from the perspective of, I think the last, I was reading some article from, I think it was like a white hacker group, that essentially they ran just a scan on open S3 buckets in the cloud. And if you don't know what an S3 bucket is, it's a way to store files in the cloud. They did a scan and they found hundreds of companies' data just sitting there unsecured. That stuff in the past would have been inside of a data center, it would have been secured. But the reality is, those folks moved to the cloud. They thought it was going to be easy. The technical debt was going to go away. And all it did is it amplified the problems that were already in the organization. So again, I used to be a psychologist, and we used to have a saying, right? You can't move and leave your problems behind. When you move, you just take your problems with you. And so if a customer doesn't have a strategy, if you're not asking your customer questions around what they're trying to do and how do they do stuff today, not what do they own today, how do they do stuff today, then what's going to end up happening is if they go cloud, they're just going to exacerbate their existing problems.
Perfect. Yeah. To follow up on that, John, or should I call you Dr. John? I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the technical term would be here, but what role does enterprise architecture and automation really play in this effort?
Yeah, so again, I'll do a real quick definition of terms. So enterprise architecture. So anyone that's, I'm sure we've got lots of solution architects on the phone. So a solution architect essentially looks at a technology stack and tries to build in resiliency and performance, right? They're all concerned with putting that stack together in such a way to deliver a technical outcome. An enterprise architect's job is to take a more holistic view. So they stand back from just an individual, not just your VMware farm, but what are all the workloads that run on top of it? And what do those workloads mean to the business? It's a very holistic view of looking at how all of the pieces intersect and interact. And once you have that, from an enterprise architect perspective, you can start to understand the value and the impact of technology to the business. So that's why it's so critical to have enterprise architecture when you're talking about cloud, hybrid cloud, distributed cloud, because you need someone to take an overarching view of all of the infrastructure, all of the applications, and all of the management, orchestration, security, because otherwise you have all these things working in silos. And from an automation perspective, I'm a big proponent of automation. Automation, I used to work for Blue Cross, right? And one of the things that we used to say is, unless it's documented, it doesn't exist to an auditor. The great thing about automation is it's self-documenting. You build it once, you know exactly what's supposed to happen. It's documented. And oh, by the way, not only do you know exactly what's to happen, that means if your end user says, I'm Johnny, I'm the sysadmin, I'm going on vacation, nothing breaks, right? The deployment process, the management process doesn't break because it's already there. And it allows you to make sure that everything you do is done repeatably at scale. And it allows you to focus on delivering the outcome, not babysitting the technology.
Okay. So then, how are you seeing the push for like that change and innovation really impact the way customers are really designing their infrastructure?
So good question. Again, if we think about traditional infrastructure was in the data center. As customers are moving to more innovation, which is really around change velocity of technology, innovation is being driven by a couple key things. So cloud native development, and if you know what that basically, cloud native development is a way to build applications so that they're easily composable and they're easily portable. If your infrastructure is built and designed from the ground up to run virtual machines, and you haven't started to look at hybrid cloud, distributed cloud containers, then you're dropping an engine into a horse and buggy with the expectation that it's going to run like a car. The reality is, if you're doing cloud native development, you need to relook at how infrastructure is being delivered. So from that perspective, that these new kind of how technology is delivered, how it's attached to the business, other thing to think about. So a lot of traditional application development, the assumption was that availability was delivered at the infrastructure layer. And that's great when you have tightly grained control of the infrastructure layer. The reality is we don't always have that. If we think about edge technology and applications being deployed, you have to architect an application and an underlying infrastructure stack for things like connectivity that may not be great, or more importantly, there's a Gartner statistic by 2025, 50% of all data is going to be delivered, created and consumed outside of a public cloud or a data center. Think about that. There's another one that says, I believe it's by 2027, that the primary limiting factor on things like innovation at the edge is going to not be latency, it's going to be the cost of bandwidth. So if you're not designing infrastructure and designing applications that take these things into account, so that your data center, whether that's at the edge, in the core, in the cloud, or ideally distributed across all of them, that data flows where it makes the most sense. There's a term called data gravity. Think of it like the solar system, right? So the solar system, there's a sun, there's a bunch of planets that are held in place by gravity. Data does the same thing. Wherever data aggregates, applications tend to go. So if you're not building your infrastructure to support the concepts of data gravity, to support the concepts of analytics in place and AI, to support cloud native and development, and to support the expectation that, let's be blunt, stuff breaks, then what you end up with is a mess. You end up with technical debt. You end up with outages and downtime. I mean, look what happened. AWS went offline, a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. It took down like a third of the internet because people had made dependencies in the cloud. They just assumed it was always going to be there, and they didn't follow proper architectural design.
Yeah. So along the same lines, John, I hear analysts are saying that the future of the cloud is hybrid multi-cloud. What are your thoughts on this? And really, what are you seeing with your customers?
100% agree that the future is hybrid multi-cloud. Just had a conversation with one of our product managers actually talking about this exact same concept. We have a customer here locally in the Raleigh-Durham area that is literally pulling their entire development environment out of the cloud and rehoming it because it costs too much money for them to maintain their production and their developments in the cloud. Hybrid multi-cloud gives customers the ability to use the skills that they already developed on premise and connect to the external cloud. That's critically important. Let's be honest, you can swing a dead cat and hit a VM admin, but try and find someone that's skilled in Google, Microsoft, and Amazon's clouds. Those are like unicorns to find somebody that has technical skill across all three. So hybrid multi-cloud, by using hybrid as a landing zone and a control plane and a staging area and a learning area for cloud is where we're seeing customers move to. Because there was an article 6 months ago, 9 months ago that talked about, you're crazy if you're not doing cloud, you're crazy if you're staying in the cloud because of the costs. And that was by Mark Andreessen's group, who's, if you don't know who Mark Andreessen is, he's kind of responsible for a lot of cloud things that we consume today. So that's why not only do I agree with that analyst, but I'm seeing customers do it and continually. They're like, okay, we did cloud, we need to do hybrid because we got to slow down our cloud costs.
Yeah. So then, what are these key driving factors that are really making customers look at cloud from this perspective?
So I want to differentiate between cloud as a place and cloud as a model of delivering IT services. I think the reason that we're seeing cloud start to become the preferred model of delivering IT services is because if you take all those things we've talked about so far, automation, bring in things like OpEx cost and lack of skill and the need to do cloud native development. All of those things combine together to drive the requirements for this. And everybody on here is a partner. So think about it. If your customers are trying to go to the cloud, chances are they need help. If you're not talking to them about hybrid cloud, about their cloud strategy and their data gravity and their automation strategy, you're leaving money on the table, because I can guarantee you, unless you're Wall Street Bank or you're a big multinational company, everybody's struggling.
Okay. So thank you, John. Let me kind of talk to Kenny here, because I want to make sure I understand a little bit about distributed cloud. I know John kind of mentioned it briefly, so could you please explain what it really means, and then also really explain, what are its operational and organizational impacts?
Sure. So distributed cloud, and John kind of alluded to it a couple of ways and a couple of times. It's where you have multiple clouds for specific purposes, and we're driven by these buzzwords, distributed cloud or cloud everywhere or just plain cloud. It's so ambiguous. But what it is that before cloud came about, we had virtualization, and virtualization was driven by server sprawl. So I almost look at cloud and distributed cloud as cloud sprawl. We have specific needs all over the place, and for performance reasons or compliance requirements, or even just getting data from the edge or outside of the data center, I'm now putting my data outside or distributed, and quite frankly, I'm not even sure where my data is going when I'm utilizing public cloud as John alluded to, as a destination. When it's a destination, I have no idea where my data is because it's dispersed. It's all over the place. And depending on some of the mechanical factors of it, it can be, if we're using in the example of Microsoft Azure, it could be like Microsoft Azure HCI stack or hub or edge, and it could be the data utilizing its mechanics in the background to manage where the data is, but it's all over the place. And so now we have to try to figure out, how do we manage that all? So as I've been around this business for, God, I just cut my hair off so you don't see all the gray, but it's 27, 28 years between IBM and Lenovo. And I think I lost all my hair dealing with IBM Systems Director, but the management plane of managing the hardware is one of those areas that is now part and parcel to this distributed cloud. Now I've got data locales, I've got infrastructure locales, and I've got to manage or corral those services and features and data sets. And depending on what software I'm running, that the dynamic resource scheduling and pools of data and memory and processing, all of that becomes an operational challenge. It becomes a benefit to some, like a partner who can provide their services in a way to their customer to provide that positive customer experience or positive outcome in order to get more business and to get more satisfaction or performance out of. Resources. Now that we're dealing with something at the edge, it could be, we were dealing with a particular customer up in the Northeast that was using edge servers and I think they were motion tracking collars around cows, dairy cows, trying to figure out where they actually graze during the day and at night, and what's their location and their movements. Well, if you've got a hard drive failure on a server that's up on a pole in the middle of a field, now I've got to worry about resources going to manage that particular server, or better yet, if a power supply was to fail, or if there's non-redundant, there's a whole host of things that we now have to worry about because of the data is now residing outside of the data center where I was centralizing all of that management. The other thing that comes to mind from an operational standpoint is governance. In this whole kit and caboodle about everything, it has to be HIPAA compliant, it has to be FIPS compliant. There's a whole host of acronyms and names that we have to try to keep straight. Now, when the data is outside of the data center, that also becomes exponentially more important. Security breaches, vulnerabilities. And one of the things John mentioned a little bit was when we got to the point of trying to get to cloud, we were trying to keep everything kind of simplistic. We did consolidation, we tried to virtualize so that we automate, and we tried to automate common rules so that we were able to get the regenerative power and the benefit out of that. Well, now when we have this sprawl, now network schemes are a little bit more fragmented. Things are performance latency between point A endpoint and point B server. That has to be taken into consideration. The simplistic now becomes a little bit more complex. So now we're kind of going topsy-turvy back into the complex, and how do you manage all of that? So that is a long way around it, but it is absolutely new challenges, new things to consider, new ways to architect, new ways to design. And so this distributed cloud is really here to stay, and really something of a challenge to deal with for the next however.
Yeah, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that agricultural use case, because that kind of lines right in next to my next question here. Really, how do you see the use? How do you see like the creation and consumption of data really from ever more devices in ever more places impacting how and where infrastructure is being deployed?
Well, being in the channel and channel first being a Lenovo mantra, it is the absolute godsend to the partner, because now you can figure out from the sheer listening skills of what the partner has acclaimed to all these years, listening to their customer, understand what their business problems are, trying to figure out how do they get the most efficiency and the better performance out of whatever. It could be something that is, like I mentioned, some compliance piece that is now a new legislation that is causing more adherence to a compliance law. Those types of things are pure opportunities for the business partner community. They can figure out from the platforms that we have, from a Think System, Think Agile platform, from the edge components that we have to the servers in the data center and beyond, we can figure out together, strategize what it is that they do, what they're going after, and what the customer is trying to achieve, and try to map out the next turn of the crank for right now and for beyond, making it what we call future-proof. So it is that consumption, that data. John mentioned it. It was a Gartner report that said about a year 2025. That's 2-3 years from now. 50% of all data created that's enterprise managed is going to be created outside of the data center. That's massive. And if the partner is the cloud provider, they are the owners and the purveyor of that data. So that means they can, if they use things like xClarity, that is one tool that's free to them in their tool belt that they can utilize to manage the infrastructure piece. But as that plugs in to the HX, like on the Nutanix side, or the vSAN into that component of the software, you're now able to extrapolate more data to come back with more insights and more ways to make the customer that much more happier.
Okay. I'm buying what you're selling there. I love that. So then, my next question really is, how does the use of edge technologies really impact this, and how does like data gravity that John kind of mentioned, come into play here?
Wow. Great question, because the sky's the limit. I mean, if I look at it, we've got the ThinkEdge portfolio, which, me being on the server side, we started off with the SC350, which everybody looked at the form factor and was like, wow, something that I can now put on one half U of one space of a rack and now take it out of the data center, and still with the ThinkShield have a secure platform to kind of utilize outside the data center. But it still is on that xClarity platform. And that xClarity platform is something that we've known and loved. I mean, I know I just said that I lost all my head with systems director, but it was the next iteration. We tuned it down, we tamped it down and got it to a core part of offerings that we do really, really well. And that is the crux and the genesis of where we can start from a platform-specific data aggregation point, so that you and the customer can utilize all of the other pieces from the IDG side of that portfolio. So the SC50, the SC70, those items, taking that data and extrapolating it and aggregating it back into the SC350 or the SC450, or even on our SR systems, and being able to put that in the data center, but utilizing that as one contiguous platform for the customer to kind of do as they wish.
Okay. So I know there was a question that came in. What were they pitching? So hopefully that was alluding to my I'm buying what you're selling. Basically, I think it's really not a product that we're kind of discussing here, really. So go ahead, Kenny. Sorry if you want to.
No. It's perfect. And that's the thing. We, as John and I have kind of evolved our roles over time, we've learned that I guess I'll say it this way. Coming from IBM, we were very data-centric, product-centric. We would talk about speeds and feeds, the processor this and the memory this, and we talk about the gadgets and gizmos. But now we're talking about the business outcomes. And that is what's the most important, because all of the app development, the development from a solution, that's where that's going. And that's what's going to get repeat business and repeat customers, repeat partners, and being able to show the partnership really in action is where that comes in. So we're not really talking about product, more so than what we're talking about is making sure that our customers' business problems are solved at the highest level.
Okay. So then, Kenny, can you help us kind of understand, the concept of distributed cloud and anything as a service, really intersecting in that, customer environment, and why do you see that, that as being important at all?
Well, I think I mentioned it. I think I said that it's all about the opportunities that we're able to partner together. You mentioned it in the introduction. I really try to live the channel first mantra. And it's not just sell through, but it's sell with, right? If we know and understand how to strategize and understand what the business partner values are, we can try to extrapolate what the time, what the value, and what the money perspective benefits are to the customer, and we can strategize and put that plan in place. And with a partner like you at Ingram, putting those configurations together and being able to make sure that our processes of supply chain is rolling smoothly out to the customer, it's a win-win all the way around. So I think honestly, the partnership grows the more that we can recognize what the opportunities are to the customer and be able to put a cohesive and articulate plan together so that we can attack it together.
Okay, perfect. So John, I saw you actually added some comments into the chat box. Could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so to tie together four things that we've talked about. So data gravity, distributed cloud, edge, and as a service. So let's looking at the state of the economy. So we've got potentially recessions coming in. We have folks that are hiring skills is still not simple, not easy. And then you still continuous supply chain disruption. So if you think about where our customers are trying to do, if your customer touches a physical product, they make it, they sell it, they move it, they in some way, shape, or form. And that physical product could be a cell phone widget, it could be a notepad, it could be a healthcare system where their product is healthcare delivered to individuals. They are going to need, and they're going to need help with distributed cloud, with edge, with automation, and they're going to want as a service, because as a service reduces their risk and reduces their risk from having to acquire something, because now it's paid for as it's consumed, but it also reduces their operational burden. And if you think about that, if I have limited staff and I'm trying to achieve a business outcome, so the business is basically telling me, I need you to deliver X. And X could be, I need you to deliver data more efficiently to my line of business managers so they can make more precise decisions around where to ship products so I can sell it. That's a business outcome. And that's going to drive profit margins. Well, that kind of concept, there's edge technologies, there's hybrid cloud, distributed cloud technologies, there's analytics, there's automation, because I can't deploy and manage any of those things without it, and the customer's going to want to consume that. And so if you've got a customer with a physical thing that they, if you're just purely passing bits and bytes, right? If you don't actually physically have a product that you interact with, intersect with, or talk to, yeah, edge may not be technology for you, but think about the vast majority of our customers. They touch physical things. The great thing about that is if you have somebody that's the gold rush. I give the analogy to folks of, you want to take an axe, walk into the middle of the forest and try and chop down the tallest tree in the forest? Because if you're trying to sell into a data center and you're not the incumbent, or the product you're pitching is not the incumbent, you're going into the middle of the forest with an axe. It's a lot easier to get the saplings around the edge. And edge is that place where all those saplings are. Because it's new, it's the Wild West. People are looking for solutions. They're looking for partners like Ingram with their market-ready solutions for IoT and edge that can help you accelerate time to value for the customer. And so, again, if you talk to your customers about time, value, money, what are you trying to deliver? How do you want to deliver it? What are your challenges in delivering it today? I guarantee you're going to hear things around analytics, edge, data compliance, data movement, cloud costs. And those are opportunities for you to go in and have a great conversation and be blunt, to drive revenue. Because customers need help.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, John. I was waiting for an analogy, so definitely, you made my day. Worked out good. Yep. So then finally, I want to close it out with a question for both of you. As technology leaders, what makes you feel excited or even inspired about what you're hearing or seeing from your customers. Kenny, how about you? What are you seeing out there?
I think what I'm seeing and most excited about is really on the systems management front. This whole automation piece is been one of those buzz technology centers that really has not. We've heard of Chef and Puppet and items like that automate some of the systems management. But I see some of the partners coming back to us with intriguing ideas and projects that they're working on that's incorporating that into the systems management mantra and making it infrastructure as code or ways of automating the process to make it even easier. So I'm excited to see the leapfrogging effect of technology building upon something that I think is one of the cornerstones of Lenovo, which is the systems management. I'm really excited about that, but really excited to see some of the things that our partners are talking about in the methodology at the edge. And that edge piece is really the Wild West, like John mentioned, being on the edge of the forest. I think that is absolutely eye-opening for most.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear our partners are, on the forefront and even, helping guide, technology and what, the vision that we're going to look for.
Yeah, certainly.
So, John, what are you hearing from the front lines?
I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you the geeky answer, and I'll give you the CTO business value answer. So the geeky answer is a lot of interest in some technologies that are coming with PCI Gen 5, with the new platforms from Intel and AMD that are going to happen. A lot of interest in things like water cooling with disaggregated compute, where traditionally a VM ran on a CPU and so did all the I/O and everything else, and now it's starting to move out to the edge of the box. That's being driven by PCI Gen 5 and CXL, which is a standard. I see a lot of interest in that. Cloud providers are already in Amazon, Microsoft, Google. They're already doing this kind of stuff to save costs because it's easier to move a set of drives from system to system than to pay for 4 times the amount of data capacity and copy the data over the network. So I think that's a huge thing. And I've got a lot of customers that are working with some folks. A lot of it's in financial services. A lot of it is in other areas where there's a heavy push for data analytics and data science. I see that really starting to gain momentum in the mainstream. That's the geeky answer. The business value answer is, the interesting things I'm seeing when I'm talking to partners, and that gets me really excited, is that, like, for example, the folks at Ingram, you guys with your market-ready solutions, it's moving past selling a widget, because at the end of the day, if you're just selling widgets, you're manufacturing bullwhips for horse and buggies. But if you're selling a solution where you can go in and you can say, hey, I want to talk to you about what the next generation patient experience looks like from a patient room, or I want to talk to you about a manufacturing solution that's going to help you make sure your manufacturing lines stay running, and let you create technologies to model what happens when you change manufacturing lines. Now, all of a sudden, you've got the attention of the business. When you have the attention of the business, the funding for those technology projects just follows. So I'm really excited to see the work that Ingram's done in those areas, because that, to me, that is how our partners are going to deliver next generation business technology solutions that drive business value impact.
Perfect. Thank you, John. So I know, as I want to be respectful of everyone's time, let's kind of stop here for now. But please note, we can always continue the conversation offline. But before we conclude, I want to give you, each one of you in my audience, a call to action. I want each one of you to reach out to my team at Ingram Micro after this event and really set up a one-on-one to discuss what this evolution really means for your business and your customers. And finally, I want to thank my guests, John Encizo and Kenny James of Lenovo, who always bring great insight into every conversation. I just feel I might not become smarter, but I just feel smarter after after every conversation we have. But so I really appreciate it, guys. Additionally, I have to thank.
Thanks for having us.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thank you. I wanted to thank Lenovo and Ingram Micro for their continued support. That allows us to bring fantastic tech talks like these every month. So I think that's it for now. I've looked at questions and I think we've kind of addressed them as they came in. So, that's really it for now. Make this your best year ever. Thank you and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.